Look, so we've been gearing up, it feels like, for almost a decade towards this moment when Donald Trump first went up or down the escalator to announce his presidential race back in 2015. He, from the very beginning, was very clear that he was going to take on trade and that tariffs were part of his tool set. And look, tomorrow is the culmination of all of that. This is going to be the biggest set of tariffs that Donald Trump has ever unveiled. We still don't know the details of them, but we do know the scale of them. These are going to be big. They're going to cover all countries, he has said. We know that there's going to be 25% tariffs on car imports that are going to take effect the day after tomorrow. We know that there's going to be more sectoral tariffs to come, and that tomorrow the big announcement is going to be what he has called reciprocal tariffs, which are meant to match all the trade barriers around the world, whether they're tariffs or taxes or regulations, with a single U.S. tariff rate. That is likely to be a fairly substantial tariff rate, could be up around 10, 15, 20%. And it's going to take us into a world that we haven't seen in almost a century, and that takes us back to 1930 and something called the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, which were, until now, the biggest act and the most infamous act of American protectionism. Well, tomorrow, Donald Trump's gonna overtake those in the kind of economic history books.
Hey, take a drink. He said Smoot-Hawley. Take a drink, Carol.
Exactly. It's a new drinking game. Hey, Shawn, you also get into, though, you talk about Smoot-Hawley and how that has served as a cautionary tale about protectionism and the economic impact. What might be the economic impact of the latest tariffs that we are expecting from President Trump? And might it be different this time around? 100 years, a lot has happened.
So there's two things. One, the thing that's going to be different this time around is the scale of it, right? We do a lot more trade out of the U.S. and around the world than we did in 1930. Just to give you an idea, in 1930, U.S. imports were about 5% of GDP, and that's of a much smaller economy at the time. Now they're around 14% of GDP. So just if you whack a tariff on all the economy, on all the imports that are coming into the U.S., you are going to be hitting a bigger pie, a much, much bigger pie than you did then. But if you talk to economists and you talk to trade policy nerds and so on, and you listen to what other countries are saying, the reaction we're expecting is actually pretty similar to what we saw after Smoot-Hawley, which was immediately other countries started to retaliate. Italian auto clubs and clubs in Argentina and Brazil started boycotting American cars. That's what we're seeing now out of Canada, where we're seeing American whiskey get taken off the shelves, and we're going to see more of that to come in all likelihood. All of that means you end up with less trade, which means less demand for American goods as well as imports. You end up with higher prices, and that's why economists say we'll probably get a repeat of what we saw last time, and that is slower growth as a result of these tariffs, higher prices as a result of these tariffs. And the one saving grace, perhaps, is, the economy is in better shape today than it was in 1930 when it was at the beginning of the Great Depression.
Just real quickly, because while we're talking economic impact or potential economic impact, there's a stat in the story in the Bloomberg Big Take that you wrote that compares it to the economic impact of the global financial crisis. Can you share that? That's a reference point that still is a major sore point, I'm sure, for many Americans.
Look, we all remember that, right? And our folks at Bloomberg Economics and my colleague Maeva Cousin, who helped write this piece, did some great work calculating how high these tariffs could go. And they came up with, if you look at all of these barriers around the world, a fair number, a kind of top number to come up with would be a 28 percentage point increase, a 28% tariff, if you will, on top of what we have now. If you work out what that means for the U.S. economy, it would lead to a 4% loss of GDP over 2 to 3 years and increased prices of 2.5%. During the global financial crisis between 2007 and 2009, the economy shrank by about 6% over that period. So that's the kind of world that we're living in. If we get maximum tariffs tomorrow, we are going to be seeing a serious economic impact. And that's why people are talking now about the possibility of a U.S. recession, or at the very least some kind of stagflation going forward. Why people are talking about lower corporate profits. This is a big economic shock.